So, Coronation Street has been in a decline, and it has been in a decline for the last couple of years. Whether it's some dodgy executive producers, or just some inept writers and just generally awful cast keeping, it's generally started to take a steep decline. And this has really hurt the show. It's dramatically started to really degrade the viewership, and a lot of people are starting to get very, very disenfranchised with their favorite soap. So today I'm going to tell you my top 5 ways to save Coronations. Now, this is my list of my ideas of what I would do in a sense, and I'll just give a little bit of preamble as well. But first and foremost, if you have your own list and you want to make one, tell me in the comment section. That sounds like a cool way to pull some more ideas and not just have a little echo chamber going. So, let's do a bit of preamble. So, first and foremost, I don't entirely think that the current way that Coronation Street is shaped, I don't necessarily think that that is Kate Brooks' fault. Now, that does sound quite bold to say, because she is the executive producer, she is the boss, so she decides what happens. But I also have to acknowledge, a lot of the cast exits that are having to be gone, a lot of them are generally people deciding last year, before she was in the role, saying, I'm not involved in this, I don't want to be here anymore. And a lot of this kind of coincides with a lot of questionable decisions by ITV and the previous executive producers just not treating them very well. So fundamentally, I don't think this is Kate Brooks' fault as such. I really do think that Kate Brooks was having to react to the set of circumstances that came before her. And as I said before, this is a bunch of characters leaving the show, and with seemingly a much harsher need to crack down on characters who, they may be viewing as kind of wasting money. It's just been a very uncomfortable time for her, and I don't necessarily believe that it is all her fault. So, I feel like she would do it differently, because when she was in charge of Emmerdale, I don't believe that this was how she treated the show. She didn't treat it like bam, 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 here we go, storyline, big crime. That's not how it worked. Simply not how Kate Brooks was doing it. So fundamentally, I think she's a victim of circumstances that go beyond her. And second, I will say this is just a personal slight. First and foremost, I don't know what Ian McLeod is still doing in charge. I don't understand why Ian McLeod was made the double producer of Coronation Street in Emmerdale, despite proving fuck all. Despite proving absolutely fuck all in his time on the show. And yes, he also had some bad circumstances, but still, I don't really think he warranted his position. So I think he's fine, because now he is just the Emmerdale executive producer, and Emmerdale is actually having quite a strong year fundamentally from everything I hear. So, maybe he's doing fine. But I also want to say, I don't know why the executive producers are really incest heavy. This might just get demonetized. That's a joke. But oh hey, Kate Brooks is the executive producer of Emmerdale. Oh, she's done a good job there. Well, let's take you to Coronation Street. What? Oh, and Ian McLeod, you've done a good job as series producer of both, so now you're going to be the executive producer of Emmerdale. What? Why? Oh, hey, who was a Hollyoaks executive producer? Kate Oates. Now she's going to be a Corrie producer. Now she's going to be an EastEnders producer. Stop putting the same people in the jobs if they don't actually do a good job of the fucking show. Chris Clenshaw's an unknown. Yeah, sure, he did Casualty or Holby City before joining EastEnders, but fuck me, at least he did something. At least it wasn't like, oh well, you've had an underwhelming 2 years on Coronation Street, time for 4 years on EastEnders. Let them earn their merit, for Christ's sake. So that's just my preamble. So let's just get that all noted down. Alright, so number 5 on this list to kick this off, and it's part of a bugbear as such. This is probably something that only really annoys me, but for me, it's an idea of wasted potential. My number 5 of things to do is I need Coronation Street to stop setting up these couples, setting up this really oh, they're going to become a really, really big couple. And then they just never actually do it. Or they split up a couple for a month because, we had a fight. And then they get back together like nothing happened. And all these serve to do is, if it's the first one, you just refuse to actually build something new, which is my problem, because like Addie and Amy, why are they not together already? They've basically been flirting for about 2 years straight now. They've clearly been each other's support, yet they just refuse to actually make them a couple and try to build something new and actually invest the time and the patience in developing this new storyline. Or you split up Asher and Nina, two characters who, let's be honest, they've not been doing anything since they split up either. Like, stop splitting up couples for no reason. Or stop building up to a potential couple but never actually make them a couple. It doesn't benefit anything. It doesn't make any history. You don't establish a new couple. You just kind of fart around and people maybe get excited and then you go, oh, don't worry, we're going to finally get them together after 2 years. Right, it's like Ryan and Daisy. They spent all that time deciding, no, this time it's for real. Ryan and Daisy are together. Oh, it's just pitted out and she's back to Daniel now. Fantastic. Fan-fucking-tastic. So, point being, stop splitting up couples for no reason. And stop building up for a potential couple and never delivering on it. That's just a big, massive one for me. Because you could be making so much history and you could be getting so many fans because people do intrinsically love the relationships on the show. It's, people are heavily invested in Carla and Lisa. Some people are heavily invested against Carla and Lisa. But no one's invested in like the teen relationships. No one's really invested in any of the relationships on the show. And the relationships on the show are so surface level at this point that the only couple of people really currently care about are Ronnie and Debbie, which is an absolute crime. So you need to... I don't care if you don't want to make too many bold choices with a character or it's a bad idea because maybe in 2 years' time you don't want them together. But like, if you don't do anything with the characters, they're just going to fart around. And then you're going to go, bloody hell, Craig's just not interesting of a character, is he? It's like, well, no, he's an all right character. But if you would have fucking done anything with him whatsoever, you probably wouldn't be axing the guy. Like, it's impossible to... It's an impossible standard to set. And then a lot of people are kind of like improperly blamed for stuff that's not their fault. And it's just I get it. You want to phase characters out, you don't really have them do much, that's fine. But fundamentally, the biggest crime is never actually doing anything. Like, you'd rather have the best 3 weeks of your life where you're fully proud and I don't even know what this analogy is, rather than have like a solid 2 years where nobody gives a shit about you or even cares. I'd rather a 3-month fucking guns blazing full-blown hurrah rather than I was just there, I said lines every couple of days, and then I didn't get to do anything proper. You're an actor. You want something to grit your teeth into. And it's mental how they just keep teasing. Because that's all these characters do as well. It's all they do. Yeah, sure, Amy's been dealing with a lot, but all she does now is she has scenes with Steve and Tracy, and she has scenes with Addie, but they're not together, so... I don't know, it's probably just a personal one, but it's one of my least favourite things in soap right now. I hate it when they just split them up for no reason, and they get back together, because for me, and this has definitely become one thing I'm just jaded with in soap in general, it doesn't ever feel good. It's not like I understand that you want to build up the tragedy in between. So you want this to be this really, really deep and twisted story, but at the end of the day, they have to fight for what they love. But also, they're never really fighting. They just have like a menial argument, and it's like, I hate you. We're going to split up. And they split up for a month, and then they get back together immediately. And it's like, you should have just kept them together. It makes the story better. Just have them work through their problems. But yeah, that is number 5. Stop splitting up couples for no reason, or stop building up a potential couple but never deliver. Alright, number 4. Slow the pacing down. This year of Coronation Street has been pretty all guns blazing. And as I said earlier, I don't necessarily think that it is Kate Brooks' fault. But, and yes, we haven't had that many deaths as such. It's been quite limited in this era. But there have been stabbings, there have been car crashes, there have been hostage situations. There has been loss of babies, there's been loss of abilities to have babies. A lot of their drama is very fast-paced. Here's a horrific event, and here's how you react. Now, it could be a good thing in a way, but when you do it so frequently and with so much, like, you do it so concentrated, a lot of it starts to lose a lot of its luster. You start to lose a lot of the genuine, wow, this is great. I love this. This is fantastic. At some point, you're just numb to it. And this is what I'd argue is probably, it's like car crash TV, where Kate Brooks said a lot of stuff about how she wants this year of Coronation Street to be chaotic. She doesn't want you to rest on your laurels. She wants it to be intense and fast-paced, and, you know, we don't want the audience to get a bit too complacent, which I get the idea of in a way, especially distancing yourself from previous Coronation Street. But you have to earn it. You do have to earn it. Because yes, Mason's death was an interesting death in a very shock way. And it really kicked the year into gear. Because like, oh shit, alright. I guess the axings are gonna come thick and fast. But with a lot of the ideas being teased, you know, with Craig being killed off, with some characters possibly being killed off, you know, you don't want the audience to not get invested in storylines anymore, because then you failed your fucking job. And it's a thing where you have to earn deaths as well, and you have to earn the tragedy as well, because in order for someone to really get swept up in the tragedy, you have to have people believe. And if you just keep throwing them out left, right, and center, ultimately you're not going to care as much. You're not going to get nearly as invested, because, you know, who is ever really safe? And it's like, I wouldn't be surprised, and I know they wouldn't do this now because they did just have Joel Deering, who was a killer. But, like, it feels like Kate Brooks would absolutely love to have a killer, because then suddenly you just have an easy excuse to write off a bunch of characters. It's a wild little time. And excuse me. It's a wild little time, and with a lot of people having to leave, you know, a part of you wouldn't, like, kind of really enjoy the idea of having these characters just be fully killed off, because some of them you just don't see any future in. But also, the weird bit for me is I don't understand. You also don't want to fall victim to killing off too many characters, because then you are dramatically leaving the door left shut, and then maybe you're going to have to start introducing a bunch of long-lost family members, which has been... They do love having a long-lost family member as of late, which is just something I've picked up from the subreddit. They do love having a, oh, you're actually my kid. Whoa. But point being, and just to wrap this one through, and I do think they've done a good job at slightly slowing down a bit as of late, because they are now focusing more on Debbie, and that's obviously a slow burn anyways. But still, you don't want to start conditioning the viewers not to care. And that's what people have probably been struggling with the last couple of years, because a lot of people don't care anymore. And that's quite sad. So yeah, that's number 4. All right, and for number 3, and this one is probably also another kind of interesting little one. For me, I do think you need to remember how to write comedy again. Because a lot of the Coronation Street comedy comes from certain characters. It comes from Mary saying something stupid or saying something weird and bizarre, but it's Mary and everybody loves Mary. I don't care about her. But it's funny because it's Mary, or it's Brian, or it's Eileen doing wisecracks, or it's Debbie saying snarky comments, or it's Kirk saying something fucking moronic. And it's my biggest kind of... I always say this about soaps, is you can tell how good a soap is when the comedy really lands. And I said this a lot with EastEnders. When I wasn't enjoying EastEnders as much, the comedy would always be the biggest struggle, because ultimately it's just kind of like blah, 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 comedy, way. Oh, hey, here's Kim Fox. She's going to say, do me a favor. And it's like, yeah, great. It's not funny, though. Because you need the comedy to be more than just surface level. You can't just go, hey, Kirk, say the line. Well, I don't actually think dogs are proper. Like, dogs are 4 legs on it, but don't spiders have 8 legs on it? What's the deal with that? I don't know what that is. That's nonsense. That would never happen. Still, like, you don't just have the one character there to just say something stupid, something eccentric, something snarky. That's not good comedy. Good comedy is based in substance. Like, it's why no comedians really got famous from telling knock-knock jokes. You know what I mean? You need the good material to work around. And sometimes it is just making jokes about, Kev, make a bull joke, but make it funny, not just have Tim rattle off bull jokes relentlessly. Just have one good one, you're fine. But it's just so bizarre to just have... hey, it's Bernie, and Bernie says something off kilter. Like, you're relying too heavily on these characters to be comedy characters. But, like, fundamentally, and you look back at Coronation Street in the past, yeah, sure, you do have a bunch of the older characters. You have Fred Elliott, for fuck's sake, who's a mental bastard, and he's insane, but he's fantastic. You have Jack, you have Vera, you have that dynamic where it's always gold because Vera's gonna try do something and Jack's gonna be like, love, stop that. Oh, I don't know why that's fucking Kim Woodburn. Oh, Vera. Yeah, like, you have all these, like, Norris and Rita. You have all these characters who aren't given the big storylines, and they are there just for comedy. But still, they play a really big part in setting the scene, and it allows for a really good deal of just funny stuff, and it helps the rest of it go down. Because you never want to be in that situation where people are just watching the show, and it's like, you just sat there at the end like, fucking hell. But it's not even, like, that deep. You're not even that, like, traumatized by it. You're just kind of like, oh, for fuck's sake, It's like watching Corrie during COVID times, and it's like, oh, Christ. Do I really have to watch fucking an hour a week of Jeff being a fucking prick all the time? Or do I have to watch 3 hours? Do I have to watch an hour of Leanne screaming at everyone the entire time? Like, you just get fed up of it. So at the end of the day, you just need to grapple to write better punchlines. You just need to set up the jokes better, right? You don't just have someone say the line. The line's only funny if it's actually a good moment, but you have to write that good moment. You don't just get that moment for free. You don't cash in your one laugh card. You have to set it up properly. And I do think they've struggled to actually do proper humor, even if they've tried their best. It's just stop, like, wheeling out Kirk. Just let him do something else, for fuck's sake. Honestly. I just fed up, just sick of it. And number 2. I think this one's a big one in general. It's a big little do. Stop focusing so much on crime. I've always said this line. I've said this line recently as well. If we wanted to watch The Bill, it would still be on TV. You know what I mean? Like, if we still wanted to watch The Bill, it wouldn't have been axed all those years ago. And it's not saying it's bad because of it, but as said earlier, the emphasis on crime is kind of leading towards a more thick and fast, very quick-paced methodology to get from A to B, a very fast way to try and tell this story, which I recognize the desire and the need to do, but also the emphasis on the police officers are quite a kind of, it's just a stark drastic change. And at least there's no murder storyline this time round, because I do love a serial killer. And after the Stephen Reed one, we just tie up that little bow, and after Joel, well, Joel didn't technically kill anyone, but we just politely let that stop. We just don't even bother trying to do this anymore. Give it a long, hard break. You've had two like killer type characters who ultimately are half the villain of Patrick Phelan. So and I think the bigger issue with that people have with this is it's not because of the crime. It is because two of the people involved in the crime are two new characters who a lot of people haven't necessarily acclimatized to. And it doesn't help how Lisa Swain's a part of a very popular ship, because that makes people hate her in the other way just because the stands won't shut the fuck up about it. They held each other's hands. I'm getting fanny flutters. They touched each other's hands. I'm going to stay up to watch the spoilers. Sorry, that's my impression of me. No. I jest, but obviously soap, like, ships are important for, like, it to be an important bit of social media, and you get a lot of attention for just having relationships in soaps, especially not generic straight ones. And obviously I'm a big ally of the LGBTQIA+, and I'm involved. Thank you very much. But when you have Lisa Swain and Kit Green, two characters who I personally enjoy and I do like, but then a lot of my investment in Kit Green is just seeing how badly they fumbled his character in Hollyoaks. But I do think he's an interesting character, an interesting copper who has his own set of a moral compass, and he's probably my favorite thing to come out of the Winter Browns. Not that there is anything else to really enjoy out of the Winter Browns. That's my personal, I don't like them. I won't lie. And I like Lisa Swain. I like Carla and Lisa, so maybe I'm not the traditional person. I do enjoy this pairing to quite a high level. And when you have two newer characters who are pushing the boundaries and pushing this forward, I feel like most viewers do start to believe, like, oh, it's just because they have Kit and Lisa, and that's why it's all crime-based. It's like, well, not really. And whilst you still have Craig and his ears just getting shit on and not really doing anything either. It's a bold choice, and it's a definite vision for what Kate Brooks seemingly wants. But still, I think the emphasis on crime is really harming it because, as I said earlier, you don't want the pacing to be ridiculous. You don't want it to be kind of crazy. Yes, they haven't killed off a lot of people, and it's been quite slim on deaths in general. But still, you don't want to feel like you're jumping the gun or jumping the shark, and you want it to all be still very measured, and you don't really seem to get that so much when there's a big crime event. It feels to be at least one a month, every month, on even sometimes twice a month. Like, we don't need this toe-to-toe, consistent, huge, massive, boom, boom, boom. Like, you really can afford to slow the pacing now. You can really afford to stop putting too much emphasis on crime. And I've kind of remembered this as well. And I'll just throw this as a little, like, tangent to point number 2. But I also think you need to... I think they've been really thick and fast with the returns, but I don't think they're doing the returns any justice. I won't lie. Like, their returns so far and I'm only remembering 2 of recent memory. Of the returns of Julie, who has been killed off. So she's going to get, 3 months back on the show. And it feels like they were just bringing Julie to be killed off so Eileen could leave, which I don't understand that. And you also have Rob Donovan's return, which was fucking horrendous. And the less said about it, the better. Like, it's cool that it happened. Does it make you want to see them ever again? The answer's no, but for Julie, the answer's obviously, why the fuck are you killing her off? And just like Debbie, there's just been a lot of questionable choices with these characters, because you understand that, look, I've said this very consistently, I've said that this Debbie Webster dementia storyline will genuinely provide a big boost to Coronation Street. I would 100% argue that this will probably define Kate Brooks' era of the show. Because Sue Devaney is a fucking phenomenal actress, and they've done a good job at actually establishing her as one of everybody's universally favorite characters. And that's why I understand the desire to make bold cuts and to keep everybody on their toes. And I think it's the perfect time. It's the time to give the Websters more of a shine. It'll be a criminal shame if they don't at least bring back Rosie and Sophie in some form. It'll be absolutely criminal if they don't do that. But I will say, I think it's going to be a really important thing. But yeah, it's just, some of the returns have been pretty tacked on. And as I said, you don't just get awards for having something sad happen. You have to build up to it and make it epic. That's my problem. That's my big problem with how things have been going. But yeah, just stop putting so much emphasis on crime as a whole. I don't think it's that... I don't think it's that big of an attractor. EastEnders has done it properly. EastEnders has done it really in such a smart way, where instead of continuing down the path of having a much grittier, more crime-centric approach to the show, EastEnders has done a good job, and this will link into number 1, but EastEnders has done a good job at avoiding the crime and taking it a different direction, and the different direction is what I'm going to go for as number 1. And finally, number 1, and this isn't intended to be Coronation Street erasure as such, and this, yes, is kind of a big angle for me in terms of being an EastEnders fan, and as I was saying before, the reason why EastEnders has been so remarkable the last couple of years is because Chris Crenshaw, a new executive producer, proceeded to make 90% of the drama based in families and not crime. Or excuse me. Now, people always say they want Coronation Street to be more like just like Norwich, just characters like complain about the price of bread. Coronation Street is supposed to be the working class soap. It's supposed to be about people living up north where most people are poor. But we have lost that kind of aspect, right? Because we are trying to be something bigger than we are. We're trying to be crime-centric and really bold. And Coronation Street is one of the most dangerous streets to live in Soapland. You want it to be a really, you want it to be bigger than it is. So you have these big, illnesses and the big dramatic storylines and the killers and the abusers. You still want to tell these stories, but you need to remember that soap's grounded in reality. And a lot of the time, when people struggle with their family. And that's kind of been a bit of an issue with Coronation Street as a whole, is because of their recent couple of years, a lot of the families have been really gutted. And that's what Chris Crenshaw in EastEnders has done a really good job of doing. Chris Crenshaw's done such a really good job of rebuilding these families so you can then have this drama to build and kind of establish the families as much greater than they have been previously. And this is what they're doing with the Websters. They're bringing in Carl, as I said before. And obviously you have Ronnie and you have the Baileys, who are part of Debbie's family, and they're going to be the big conduit surrounding Debbie's dementia storyline. And you couldn't do this without a couple more entries about a couple or more family relationships that therefore are going to build it around. It's why they had Paul's MND, where you had the whole Winter Browns, you had Kit as well, and you had everybody who had been with Paul at any point in time, all were there to support him. So it's an important thing to have, because you want this family drama to be a big deal, because ultimately that's what it's all about. If you have something harsh happen in your life, how do you react? If you're a family person, you speak to your family. You'd settle it as a family. You have mistakes, and then as a family, you work past it. It's how it works. It's core to everybody's general approach in life, or at least most people's. And this is why I think Kate Brooks been trying to introduce a bunch more, and has also generally been phasing out a lot of the families that are dead on its feet, like Craig, for example. And obviously Daisy left, but still, it's just, you really need to make do with what you have. But if you have the option to bring in a couple more faces, like I was pretty on the record with saying what characters they need, what families they need to beef up with EastEnders. Like I said, they needed to beef up the Brannings, brought in Penny and Lauren. They need to beef up the Mitchells, a whole new Mitchell family. They need to beef up, like, I didn't really say the Fowlers, but still, like, you need these families to actually have people to react to the drama. Because imagine how wet it would have been if Debbie has dementia, but the only family she has around her is Kevin. Like, I think that just echoes my point entirely. Like, I don't think it's as big of a deal as some people may kind of. I do think the crime is a problem because it is lessening the impact of some of these storylines. But also, I just think that they need to keep rebuilding these families. And that's what they are doing with Lisa and Carla. So then you have Ryan, Betsy, Bobby. You have these characters who are now trying to be, though that is a family they're building around. The Websters again, they're making Sally and Tim foster parents, and now they're going to have more of a family to work around. The Platts are an ever large family anyway, so they will always have characters to bounce off of. The Winter Browns even then. So, like, fundamentally, you need these families to... The Baileys and the Websters are kind of interlinked in all. And obviously the Barlows, of course. Like, you need these big, and the Dobbs and the Browns, whatever Chesney, whatever Tyrone and Fizz are. And they obviously have the big family unit with Cassie and Evelyn, but yeah, it's just, and the Grimshaw, like, as I said before, you have these families that are being built up more dramatically, and that'll go an absolute length in order to keep this drama important and integral to the show, while not just feeling like you kill them off willy-nilly. Like, at least with some of the axes that they've made of characters, they have killed off, they have axed characters that probably don't really deserve to be there again. Like, say what you want about Craig, no one's crying for Craig. Maybe they will once he actually dies on the show and it becomes like a big deal, but fundamentally, no one is like, oh, they should bring Craig back. No, he's been lucky to get 14 years on the show. He has been lucky. So, yeah, I think at the end of the day, you need the backbone of any soap to be that big family drama. And if you don't do that, you run the risk of making people just not give as much of a shit, because you want them to believe in the families. You want them to be a fan of the families. You don't want them to be a fan of one character. You want that being a fan of one character to kind of hold itself in being a fan of everyone. And yeah, And as I've just went through, I will say it has felt like there is a much better, they have done a good job at kind of trying to rebuild or trying to hold the families a bit more dear. And I do think they've fundamentally done quite a good job of it. But also, you could do better. And I think that's what this new era is going to be like. You want to establish the next generation. You want to re-establish a good family duo. You want to establish good family dynamics. So in order for you to actually be invested and actually be hurt when the characters are struggling, you need to have the family there to bounce back off. So yeah, there we are. That's my top 5 ways to save Coronation Street. I'll do an outro in a second. And there we are. That is my list of the top 5 ways to save Coronation Street. Now, as I said before, this was just my list, and they're kind of in an order, but they're also kind of wishy-washy. So it's not like it was a big, well thought out, handcrafted list. These are just off the top of my head, some of the, a bit more thought towards it than that. But these are some of my biggest problems with the show and things I would like to see better if they are going to continue to get better. Because I still believe that Coronation Street is getting better. And I think through time, the Kate Brooks way will actually make sense. And once we actually shuffle out all the characters who are leaving, and then it's a hard thing to do. Where, yeah, sure, you still need to have a really cool Daisy exit, and you want to have a cool Craig exit. But still, at that point, are you really investing in the characters as such? Because now, they are just leaving you eventually. So, like, you want to do a good job, but also how much time do you expend to a character who's not going to be there in a year's time? So I understand the struggle, but it is also important to remember, and it's important to not take anything for granted. You have to earn everything you try to do, and you have to work very hard to actually please and encourage the audience to actually be a fan, because you never want to feel like you're at odds with the producers and the writers, because then it just makes watching the show fucking miserable because you're just sick of it. And the comedy doesn't land because you're not buying into the show. And it turns into a bit of like a convoluted mess. It's always my one thing that I think people seem to forget. When you don't enjoy a show, the comedy doesn't land, typically. It has to be really good for it to actually land. But fundamentally, people kind of mistake that for bad writing, but they don't actually take it for what it is that's typically just you not buying into the show, fundamentally. So that's what I'd argue. But even then, so I think this has been a cool thought exercise. Maybe next week I'll do a video about like the top 5 ways that Coronation Street has improved from the previous era. So I think this was a really fun topic. I think it's a really fun video idea. So I think now I extend this branch to you. What are your top 5 ways to fix Coronation Street? I think it'd be a really interesting thing to hear it all in the comment section. Once again, this video should have had chapters, so I hope everybody's appreciate this. And obviously tell me in the comment section if you would like me to do any more. But yeah, honestly, that was a lot of fun. But yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. Catch us in the next one. See you then. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye.